Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm feeling a little under the weather, so if you could give me just a little bit of a leeway, I would appreciate it. Let me do my legal disclaimer. This is an ongoing criminal case, and all the people mentioned herein are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, and all the comments I make here, my opinions, they're my opinions, and I've called this research that I'm going to present to you from court documents, from police reports, from 911 calls, from news reports, from interviews with people involved, and also from web sleuths. Shout out to web sleuths. I was a member of web sleuths way back from the Kaylee Anthony case. So when we left off in part 1, Tammy Daybell believes she is shot at on October 9th, 2019 by a masked man with what she thinks is a paintball gun. However, in retrospect, I do believe that that masked man was more than likely Alex Cox, and that masked man was more than likely wielding a gun with a silencer. That's my opinion. Chad and Tammy Daybell have a publishing company wherein they publish Chad's 20-odd books geared towards the LDS community. Also some books that Chad's written that aren't geared toward the LDS community, like One Foot in the Grave, the grave digger story that it's fictionalized from his life. And they also had other published authors, and one of the published authors, Julie Rowe, I'm going to paraphrase her. She said that Chad Daybell had confided in her that he wanted to get out of the publishing business, but it was Tammy that didn't want to. And that he allegedly said, quote, "When she passes, I'm done. I can't keep doing this." And that he also said that in the past, his angels, the ones through the veil and all that stuff, had told him he was going to lose Tammy. Chad Daybell is predicting his wife's death to more than one person, and he's sharing this prediction to Julie Rowe, to Lori Vallow, and who knows who else, Alex Cox perhaps. He's sharing his prediction that his wife is going to die. Did he share that with Tammy? Do you think so, guys? Do you reckon that he shared that prediction with Tammy Daybell? I don't think so. On a side note, because there are all these other players going on in this cult or group or friend group, call them what you want. There's all these peripheral players with all these kind of similar things going on or like-minded ideals. I want to focus on Chad and Lori. However, sometimes you got to mention some of the other stuff that's going on. And I'm going to do that. On October 16th, 2019, that's an approximate date, by the way, there's a text from Melanie Boudreau to Brandon Boudreau. Melanie's a Cox. She's the niece of Lori. She planned to move to Boise and was saying the kids could stay with Brandon in Arizona or go with her to Boise. Now this couple's having custody disputes. He's at this point, I believe he has the custody, and he has taken the kids and gone away because he's been shot at. He's been shot at, and he believes that Alex Cox is the one that tried to shoot at him. So he's taking the kids, and all of a sudden he's getting this text saying, it's fine, you can keep the kids, or they can come with me. Kind of a conciliatory, you could read that text as conciliatory. So that's part of the story. It's like, what's going on here? Why is this happening now? So let's move on. October 18th, 2019. Tammy Daybell is seemingly healthy and ready to training for a 5K. And she has a friend. It's because, mind you, they've got a book publishing company. She has a friend that's looking for book recommendation because she liked the one that Tammy had already recommended. So she's looking for another book recommendation. She sees Tammy on October 18th and said Tammy seemed, quote, different and, quote, frustrated. So Tammy was not in her normal happy state of mind on October 18th, but we don't know because she didn't share with the friend what the problem was. The next day, October 19th, 2019, Tammy Daybell, age 49, is found dead. Found dead at her family home. That's the one in Rexburg, Idaho. So Chad Daybell, He calls Tammy's father, crying and saying, oh, she had a coughing fit the night before and that she went to sleep and never woke up. Allegedly, that's what he tells Tammy's father. So I do believe initially there's no autopsy performed on her body. And also, as a side note, allegedly the coroners in Idaho are elected officials. I know they're elected officials and they may not have medical training. Not all of them do. I'm not saying that the people that end up doing the autopsy don't have medical training. I'm just saying allegedly I read that the coroners in Idaho are elected officials. They're not like our Dr. G here necessarily with all the medical credentials in the whole wide world, that they can be elected and they may or may not have medical training. So just put that in your notebook. October 22nd, Tammy Daybell is buried in Springville, Utah. Allegedly, around the time of Tammy Daybell's death, Chad Daybell is telling people that Lori Vallow, you know Lori, the one he's kind of hanging out with all the time, calling every day on the burner phone, allegedly, has no minor children. She's an empty nester. That's what he's telling people. So Chad Daybell, what's he getting out of this? He collects $430,000 on his dead wife's life insurance. Almost $500,000 in life insurance. Yeah, on October 23rd, 2019, Lori Vallow allegedly has the older Daybell children over for cookies. Over for cookies. Is this the time that he tells everybody that she's an empty nester? Because Lori's not an empty nester at this point in time. She has a 7-year-old special needs child and a 17-year-old that hasn't gone off to college. That woman is not an empty nester. But she's having over Chad Daybell's older children for cookies. Let that sink in. 2 days after that, Chad, he's moving out of the family home. Now you might think, well, he's got older adult children that would probably enjoy living in the family home and he's got other ideas. He's got some plans, so he's moving out of the family home. Why is he moving out of the family home, folks? You want to go ahead and say it. Go ahead and say it. His wife just died. Up and out of the blue. Nobody knows what the heck happened. Chad's having his older kids going over to his, I won't say mistress, but to Lori's house for tea and cookies. And then, the next day, he's moving out of the marital family home. November 2019. Melanie Boudreaux, let's get back to this one. She's Lori's niece. She's arrested for suspicion of trespassing on Brandon Boudreaux's parents' property, aided by Alex Cox. And I got to ask, why is Alex Cox a strong man for this family? Is it, the uncle that's always going to come and tase your husband or ex-husbands in parking lots and go along when you go and trespass looking for your children at your ex's property after you've allegedly given him a text saying, oh, it's all cool, you can keep the kids. So I don't know. This is a whole mess over here. But you start kind of getting a parallel thing going on. And then I think that's part and parcel why people say, cool. You can't fault people for that. Now, granted, you might be completely innocent of everything, just having a normal old custody dispute. But you got this guy, Alex Cox, that has a record of doing things to family members' exes and people that, like a strong man. He's got a record of doing that. And here's Melanie with Alex trespassing. Make of that what you will, too. Allegedly. November 5th, 2019, 2 weeks after Tammy's death, Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell, they're married in Hawaii, okay? And some of Tammy's family are now shocked. So now they're shocked. Now they're like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Yeah, wait a minute, what is going on here? And if you want to say that what tipped this case into investigation mode, I'll tell you. November 26, 2019, Kay Woodcock calls in for a welfare check on JJ. This is what pops it all open. All this secrecy and hiding and zombies and lies and this person going missing and nobody noticing and all this stuff gets popped open when Kay Woodcock grandmother of JJ, sister of dead Charles, calls in for a welfare check on JJ because she hasn't heard from JJ. And she calls the police. The police go over to Rexburg to Lori's house, and when questioned by the police, Lori tells the police that Joshua was living with the family friend in Arizona, and that's Melanie Gibb. Per Melanie. That's what she tells the police. Now, who's outside? Chad Daybell is outside, allegedly, this residence when on or around the time that this is happening with the welfare check. Who else is outside? Alex Cox is outside. So allegedly, Alex Cox, maybe when the police are leaving, who knows, they probably said, where's JJ? And Alex tells the police that JJ's with Kay in Louisiana, and the police know this is a lie because Kay's the one that called the welfare check in. You following me? So the police know that Alex is a lie. L-A-H, you're a liar. Lie. He's a liar, okay? So then they go and talk to Chad. One or the other. They talked to one, maybe it was one officer talked to one, I don't know. They talked to Chad and they ask him about Lori, and he's acting like he doesn't even know her, barely. He barely knows her. He's married to her at this point, guys. Consciousness of guilt. Every time I say consciousness of guilt, put a little flag, because we'll put the legal hats on and then start building the thought process towards consciousness of guilt and guilty. What would, you'd have circumstantial evidence and you start stacking these bricks up of consciousness of guilt, circumstantial evidence, consciousness of guilt. Okay, so start putting those flags in, because they ask ye old Chad, where's JJ? What do you know about Lori? I don't really know her that well. I don't even have her cell phone number. He's married to her. Keep that in mind too. I'm speculating that at this very moment, because we're told that Melanie G gets a call from Chad, and he's like, hey, if the police call you, don't pick up the phone. And she's, alleges now that that's like what made her come to Jesus, no pun intended, about this whole situation. And then allegedly, Lori calls her up all chipper chicken and is telling her, oh, pretend JJ's with you and you went to see Frozen, and the reason you couldn't pick up the phone was because you were watching Frozen, and la 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 la, and asks Melanie to lie. This is according to Melanie. And so I gotta say this. Yeah, it becomes real, Melanie, right? All these past lives and part of the 144,000 and you're chosen and touching through the spirit veil and all these fantasies and mysteries and dungeons and dragons and crazy stuff. It becomes real. All the fantasy goes away when the Popo give you a call, doesn't it? It tends to do that, right? It makes you, it's like that cold water right in your face when the Popo give you a call and ask you, do you have somebody's child? Melanie says in an interview that Alex Cox knew that Melanie, at this point, going forward, was going to tell the police what she knew. So Melanie wasn't going to lie for Chad and Lori, and that Melanie also said that Chad and Lori said an earthquake was imminent and that the missing children wouldn't be an issue because of the earthquake. Huh? Meaning like they're buried, and if there's an earthquake, no one's going to notice the missing children because of the earthquake? It's going to, I don't understand. Is it going to swallow up the whole state? I don't get it. I honestly, this whole thing is nuts. So, Melanie allegedly doesn't pick up the phone the first time. So, she can sit there and say, my eyes are open, and that I believe they are. But it was December 6th by the time Melanie allegedly tells the police that the Daybells asked her to lie for that. And granted, knowing that on the 27th of November versus knowing that on December 6th, for the purposes of this case, would it make a humongous difference? Would it have saved a life? No, it wouldn't have saved a life, but it is what it is. By December 11th, 2019, Tammy Daybell's body is exhumed by the Fremont County Sheriff's Office and the Utah Office of the Medical Examiner. So now we've got the real medical examiner involved in exhuming Tammy's body. The next day, Alex Cox dies in his home. So December 12th, Alex Cox dies in his home, and The police have found him unresponsive, and the death is ruled natural causes. Was he overwhelmed with the exhumation of Tammy's body the day before? I have no idea. So by December 21st, 2019, the Rexburg Police Department label Lori and Chad persons of interest in the disappearance of J.J. Vallow and Tylee Ryan. And so this is probably when you and the public were apprised of these goings on, because it made the national news about, where are these missing children? These are the persons of interest. What have you seen? What do you know? What have you heard? Please get us, please contact us. Lori's family, the Cox family, insisted, the kids trusted Lori and they must be safe. So they weren't that concerned, thinking that some major thing had happened. Allegedly, they were, everybody thought that she had her reasons for keeping the kids away from Cape Woodcock. On January 3rd, 2020, the local police department and the feds, they execute a search warrant on the Salem home owned by Chad Daybell. This is the 1900 block house in Fremont County, or Salem. And the police were seen there using metal detectors, probes, stakes. But the thing is in January in that state, it's usually snowing, and it was snowing, and it was hard and icy, and seemingly they didn't find the children. On January 6, 2020, the attorney of now deceased Charles Vallow, he comes forward and tells that his client, Charles Vallow, had told the attorney, if I die, Lori and her brother did it. So again, let's put another little bit of evidence. It's almost an excited utterance, but not quite. Not quite, but it's just yet another thing that Charles Vallow felt that, hey, if I die, look into Lori and her brother. Yeah, that's crazy. On January 16th, there was a child protection action filed by the state of Idaho. So they're starting to process the fact that these children are missing and that this is a problem that they need to start trying to locate Lori. And meanwhile, Lori's in Hawaii, living her best life. I mean, you see pictures of them doing hula, you know what I mean? Like just living it up, having the greatest time, on this spiritual plane. They're having a great old time. On January 26, 2020, Chad and Lori Daybell are located in Princeville, Hawaii, and Lori served with an order to produce the children. This is an order from Idaho. And later, she's also served with search warrants, by the way. The court were ordering her to produce JJ and Tylee in Idaho by January 30th. So it essentially gave her 4 days to produce those children in the court. But Lori allegedly ignored the order. I mean, you're going to be in contempt of court for doing that, at the very least. On February 20th, 2020, Lori's arrested in Princeville, Hawaii on 2 felony counts of desertion and non-support of dependent children. We'll get into later about how and why they serve you with the lighter sentence in order to keep you in custody. Later on, they also serve a search warrant. They don't find the kids, but they find things like their iPad, JJ's iPad, the thing that he also had the app on that would calm him down, the kids' bank cards, their birth certificates, things like that. Things that kids would need to get along in life if they were on this planet, on this earth. And on February 26, 2020, Lori signs a waiver of extradition so that she can be extradited back to the mainland. And she agreed to go to the mainland for the hearing and the trial. At this point, Lori is retaining her own private counsel, so it's not like she's indigent or anything, because you got to think Chad has $430,000, give or take. So allegedly, they have enough money for their attorneys. On March 5th, 2020, Lori's back in the Madison County Jail in the mainland, and she is charged officially with 2 felony counts of desertion and non-support of children. She's also charged with the misdemeanor count for obstruction, resisting an investigation, and also a charge for, I believe, contempt of court, essentially. And no one had bailed her out. No bail bondsman wanted to touch that one with a 10-foot pole. And as of today, she is still in custody. So this is the part that's going to get really tough. If you have a hard time hearing kind of graphic details, this might be where you start zoning out. Okay, so then the police allegedly are getting all this data from the cell phone companies and from all the devices that people owned and have on them. People don't really realize that, though they don't know exactly where you are as a person, they know where your phone is, if you're the one holding the phone. And so not only through pings, but also through plain old GPS tracking, people can pretty much track everybody's comings and going. Person A probably is the owner of this phone or Apple Watch or whatever, and they're over here doing all this. Person B is over here doing all this. Person C is over here doing all this. These two are together here. They can put all this data together in quite an amazing manner nowadays. And the police allegedly tracked Joe Cox's cell phone pings and his GPS and cell phone to the backyard of the Daybell property on certain days that they believe, through their investigation, that the children may have come to harm. The FBI unit used what's called the Cellular Analysis Survey Team, or CAST. And what they do is this analysis of the cell phone records, the GPS data, the cell tower connections, the Wi-Fi connections, the Google tracking. They put all this together and they combine the information for law enforcement, and it's accurate to 6 meters. So when people say cell phone pings, oh no, we are way above cell phone pings. We're adding GPS data, the Wi-Fi connections, and the Google tracking. It's not just a cell phone ping. We've gone further, and the FBI is using the CAST to do that investigation. And so what they found by looking at this allegedly, is that on September 9th, back on September 9th, they had all gone to Yellowstone. Tylee, allegedly, Lori, and Alex had gone to, and JJ too, had all gone to Yellowstone. And there's some pictures that are widely circulated of them going to Yellowstone. And on Alex Cox's phone at 2:42 a.m. to 3:37 a.m., after the trip to Yellowstone, so in the middle of the night, he's going to Lori's apartment, allegedly, and he goes back to his own apartment by 9:21 a.m. So in the middle of the night, he's over there at Lori's apartment, and his phone, by the history of their investigation, he never went to Lori's apartment in the middle of the night. So Uncle Alex, after this Yellowstone trip, is going to Lori's apartment in the wee hours of the night, and then his phone, I can't say but his phone definitely went over to the Daybell's property, their home, and was behind the house for 2.5 hours in the same location near a fire pit that the body of Tylee was found. Let that sink in. And according to Chad's texts and Chad's phone and Tammy Daybell's phone, because think this is back in September, neither of them were at home at that moment. Okay, and then around the time that JJ went missing, so we're thinking he went missing on September 24th, give or take, 9:55 a.m., Alex's phone was at the Daybell property until 10:12 a.m. near the pond at the northern edge of the property, where then JJ's body was discovered. At this site, a patch of ground about 4 feet by 2.5 feet, it was shown to be disturbed earth, and the weed growth around that earth was shorter. And I could get into another video about search and rescue and about decomposing bodies and what they do to the weeds. Like, you could also find buried remains by the growth And it's not just the fact that the earth was disturbed and the weeds are there for shorter than the weeds around it. You also get discolored earth and things of that nature. Whenever the police dug, there were several large flat rocks, and under that some paneling, and under that finally they found a round object covered in black plastic, and that was JJ, wrapped in plastic and covered with duct tape. And the CAST unit through the FBI have discovered all this information. So on June 9th, that's when they went to the Daybell property, and the human remains were discovered in the backyard of Chad Daybell's Salem property, and it just so matched up with what they believed with their probable cause affidavit using Alex Cox's phone records. And you might say, well, why didn't they use Lori's and Chad Daybell's other phone, the one that he used when he talked to Lori? Well, according to belief, they use burner phones. So unless they can locate the burner phone, I don't know how well they're going to be able to put Lori here, there, or anywhere. We don't know if maybe Lori used Alex as a strongman again, allegedly. I don't know. I do not know. But all I can tell you is what the evidence shows is that Alex Cox was there on the property at a man that he tangentially knew, but he's at Chad Daybell's property at the locations of where these bodies were later found. The law enforcement officers and the state said the, quote, matter of concealment was particularly egregious, and that so Chad Daybell was charged with 2 felony counts of destruction and alteration or concealment of evidence. That's the children. The penalties for each of these charges, which is just the destruction, alteration, or concealment, 5 years each. So let's say that Charles does not catch any more charges, and let's say that he's found guilty of these charges. That's a possible 10 years. In my opinion, the state charges the lesser charges, not lesser included, the lesser charges to secure a suspect's custody, and then they'll go ahead and charge murder or conspiracy or any kind of accomplice. They'll charge those later because there's no statute of limitations on murder. And also, in many states, the clock starts ticking the minute you charge certain charges, and they have the defendant has a right to a speedy trial. And what they want to do is make you speed so that you rush your, like sometimes if you've charged murder and you don't have the evidence, it takes time to get all the evidence back from DNA and all these forensic examiners and stuff. And if you charge somebody too fast and you don't have all your evidence in place and all your witnesses and all your affidavits and all that stuff, you can lose. You end up losing your case. So that's one reason why they wait until they have every brick in place before they charge the murder charge anybody with murder. But I'm not saying they will be charged with murder, but that's the reasoning behind it. And so Chad Daybell was scheduled for July 1st of 2020, which is upcoming, and in the age of Corona, everything is almost being done virtually. So he had a preliminary hearing set, but he went ahead and got a different lawyer. I believe that he and Lori were using the same lawyer, which was fine and good until you catch your own charges. So it's a good idea for him to have his own lawyer, John Pryor. The bail was set at $1 million. They do believe they might have argued that that was excessive, but it was not found to be so. The preliminary hearing was vacated until August, so we won't know even until August what is going to happen. I want to talk about the children. No child deserves this, and I believe children deserve an advocate. And some people might say, well, why do you do true crime? I am always different people have different interests in true crime, but I believe that you should have an advocate, and I believe that there are innocents in this world, and I believe that animals and children are the ultimate innocents in this world, and they don't deserve this kind of thing. So they alluded to mayhem when they talked about this in a press conference, and Tylee was burned and she was dismembered. And JJ was wrapped in plastic and duct taped. This wasn't a kind burial for two children that no child deserves this, but two children with so much promise. And I am interested to see who's going to flip on who first. Alex Cox can't flip because he's dead. He's already flopped. He's dead. And let's put on the legal hat for a minute. Let's put on the legal hat. Insanity is defined by each state individually. And I'm going to look up. I haven't even looked it up, but I can look it up here. What Idaho's insanity statute reads. So let me look it up. Holy shit, you guys. Holy shit. It's so funny because our state has the insanity defense, and it says Idaho is one of the 4 states without a criminal insanity defense. Holy shit. I might keep this in because I did not know that they didn't allow the insanity defense. See, I'm shocked, you guys. I didn't realize Idaho does not have the insanity defense. So, wow, I had a whole entire section of this video dedicated to the possible insanity defense and why, as a defense attorney, that might be a good option, but why it probably wouldn't work because you knew what you were doing was wrong. So you also have to be, when you're insane, not only do you have to be you have to be insane, but also in a lot of states, all the states are different, you have to know what you were doing was wrong. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're not well mentally. You're essentially insane, going just off the wall. You're seeing aliens. You kill your brother and you chop him up into a bunch of pieces and you bury him in the backyard and you take over his identity and you lie about where it is. Well, you prove that you knew what you were doing was wrong. And someone says, why'd you do it? Well, because I knew I'd get in trouble. I'd have to go to jail. Well, there you go. You weren't insane enough. Now, let's say you killed your brother, you chop him up in a million pieces, and you sit in the house and people come over and you say, hey, yeah, that's my brother, and he's chopped up in a million pieces, and you're just off your nut. Then more than likely, you're off your nut, and you're going to make the insanity defense will be accepted. And also you'll end up, in that case, going to a mental ward until you are deemed sane enough to deal with, to be okay, to be released into society or to deal with your sentence. There's also insanity at the time of the crime and insanity at the time just to even go to trial. So you could be perfectly sane, commit a crime, and then become insane and not even be able to represent yourself. In that case, they just wait until you're okay to represent yourself. They try to get you mentally well, and then they go ahead and you can go to trial once you're sane. So I was thinking that an insanity defense might be a viable option for these two characters, Lori and or Chad, if they were to get any further charges. But guess what? They don't have the insanity defense. I'm sitting here literally shocked, you guys. Wow. Oh my gosh. So that is why more than likely he pled not guilty. So they're going to have to make the state build this case brick by brick with consciousness of guilt and with circumstantial evidence. And wow. They're going to blame this on Alex Cox. Wow, they're going to blame this on Alex Cox, you guys. I make a prediction just now because I had a whole entire thing talking about how each state was different for the insanity defense, and it seemed like Lori and Chad both truly believed their delusions. Considering people as zombies makes them inhuman, and therefore it would be okay to kill them. That's an insane thought. But that it wouldn't reach the level of criminal insanity if they knew what they were doing was wrong, and then the proof of that would be the consciousness of guilt. The consciousness of guilt would be like things like hiding the bodies, because zombies wouldn't need to be hidden. So it proves that you knew what you were doing was wrong. Lying about the children's whereabouts, that's consciousness of guilt. Running off is part of consciousness of guilt. I mean, there's like a whole laundry list of the consciousness of guilt. But I did not realize that there's no insanity defense. Wow. So on June 15, 2020, Chad Daybell did plead not guilty to the charges, and he requested a jury trial. That was another thing I was like, whoa, I would request a bench trial. Personally, I would never ask for a jury trial on something like this. That's me. I would be like, throw it on the judge to make the state prove it. A lot of judges aren't as emotional as juries. So if if there's holes in the state's case, if they have bad evidence, if you can get all kinds of stuff tossed out in the beginning, you can make a state's case fall to pieces and then ask for a bench trial. Yeah, you can get out of it, but wow. Yeah, I predict that they're going to blame this on Alex Cox, and that they're, ooh, guys. Well, no matter who killed whom, they may get conspiracy to commit murder charges because somebody killed these kids, and I just do not see that the state's going to buy that Alex did this and that the others didn't have their fingers all over this. And my prediction is that Lori or maybe Chad will flip on the other one. I was going to say they would plead not guilty by reason of insanity, but now I see that that's not an option. So I'm sitting here taken aback. Please let me know your thoughts on this, and if you'd like, I could do one video just on consciousness of guilt and list all the different things from soup to nuts for just Lori and or Chad that show their consciousness of guilt. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please push the like and subscribe, and you'll just be notified the next time I upload. So without further ado, have an excellent day.